I starting loop. Ooh, that's scary. Let's see. I must have taken something off. There we go. Alright, I think I got audio. Yep, I do. Let's see whoever's here early. Gotta move my camera lights and things somewhere more sensible. I got an overhead drop light. I'd love to put it up in my corner, but I don't know if I can. If it's gonna wash out. I really need some diffusers in here. I don't know a smart way to do it. Anybody out there, let me know. Do you know how to get the rear-mounted Floyd nuts? Is it like a nut and bolt system? I'm trying to think of how they do that. You put the bolts in the bottom, the way like Ibanez does it for the Floyd Rose lock nuts. Okay. Anyway, let's get started here. Alright, so welcome to evidence-based audio number 228, I think, and this is just a hodgepodge of claims. I know I've been pretty late with these, not anywhere near as frequent. I used to do them once a week. And life has really sped up, man. So I've been having a lot of trouble getting there. Been doing a lot of guitar tech work lately. A lot of speaker repair, things like that, stuff to do with PA systems. And like you see this webcam thing, people are saying I should have this. I don't know. I'm not convinced. Maybe I'll make it square and make it even smaller. I don't think anybody wants to see my stupid face. Anyways, let's get to first article. This is from Guitar Kit World. And, you know, this is something... let me see. Let's see if I can find why I even looked at this page in the first place. Anybody notice like YouTube is just like lagging out lately? Or not just YouTube, but Chrome in general. So here's kits. Let's look for 7-string. 6+ string kits? What does that mean? 7-string kits. Okay, so this is why I knew about this site. I was looking for a, before I got this Ibanez, I was just looking for something cheap. These all look cool. I know they come with total junk parts, but that's okay. I was looking at this one. They all come with this awful, like the back of the body, I don't know if it's going to show it, but it's just this tiny little, that little hole right there, that's the entire electronics cavity. You're not going to stick a battery in there. Anyway, I like, I may end up getting one of these bodies. If it fits my Ibanez neck, that's the problem, because those things are a little bit wider. The body I have is from Ibanez, but it sucks. I can't just put a regular Floyd Rose on. I was thinking of getting actually, I ordered some routing templates, so maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Anyway, here's the article. This is what I have a little bit of contention with, because, you know, what did Hitchens say? Let me get the quote exactly right. Now, this is from Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. But Christopher Hitchens' razor, what can be asserted without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. And we should treat things in the audio world like that, because if you're going to make magical clock claims, magical mic preamp claims, magical topology tube versus transistor claims, whatever, better be able to assert it you better be able to bring the receipts, right? So let's see. So this article is from Guitar Kit World. It says guitar tone woods, how they affect tone and playability. Tone woods are timbers selected for their acoustic and tonal properties used in the construction of stringed instruments, including guitars. They are almost always a hardwood derived from deciduous trees, as guitars must be able to absorb the tension imparted from the guitar strings on the body and neck, retaining tuning stability and structural integrity, especially with regard to the neck. But then again, how many guitars out there, acoustics especially, are made out of softwoods, right? And how many evergreen barn casters are there? People are taking stuff off of old fences. Those were softwoods mostly, and picking guitars out of them. So, your house is held up with softwood 2x4s. So I don't know. Some of the most common tone woods used in electric guitar construction include alder, mahogany, maple, and ash, which are all available as custom body timber and neck timber options from Guitar Kit World. If you're new to guitar and have no idea how these different tone woods influence guitar tone and playability, you may be wondering which tone wood you should choose to best suit your musical taste. Now, this is stated as a fact. This is like medical claims you see all the time. If you're new to guitar and have no idea how these different tone woods influence guitar tone and playability. Now, these woods don't. You'd have to prove that they influence guitar tone and playability. Now, if your wood's so soft that your neck snaps in half, yeah, that would affect playability. But if your guitar can't stay put, I don't care what kind of wood it is. So, but you're making a claim, you gotta bring the evidence for it. They're just stating it out loud, and they got no evidence for this. Sorry about my eyeballs. In the following article, we're going to take a closer look at mahogany, maple, alder, and ash and explain how they can influence tone and playability. Oh, they're going to explain it. Okay, let's see that. If you're unsure which tone wood you should choose when considering a new DIY guitar kit, this article's for you. The influence tone woods have on guitar tone. Do tone woods actually make a discernible influence in guitar tone? Yes, that's the question. Maybe on acoustic. I don't think it's the species of wood, though, because you can get really dense wood. Let me show a picture of something. And I think you guys already know what this is, but you may not have considered it when it comes to how this affects guitars. So if you guys know what dendrochronology is, right, that's tree ring dating. See, here's a tree ring. So there's soft and there's hard parts of this same wood. Like, the species of wood, I guarantee that a hard piece of wood from one species could be way harder than a soft piece of wood from a allegedly harder species. So I don't think species matters. If anything matters. I mean, I think density matters, rigidity matters. To an acoustic guitar. To an electric guitar, not. Like, I think we were talking about Ethan Weiner. The ultimate guitar would probably be made out of concrete, right? Because you're not going to lose any energy to body resonance. But instead of bringing the evidence, just like Hitchens Razor stated, here it goes. Here's how they answer. There's no question the choice of tone woods used in acoustic guitar construction plays a major role with regard to tone. But when it comes to electric guitars, it becomes far less clear. Well, that's sort of true. As a result, there's been an ongoing debate amongst guitar makers over the influence of tone woods on tone for many years, and the debate continues. Let's see what they have for this ongoing debate here. Here's music stack exchange. I didn't even know there was this thing. So it looks like there's several. On a solid body, the guitar, the body shape and wood don't matter much. The most important thing about the guitar is the mechanical impedance is seen by the string. I think that's what Ethan was saying as well. The string starts vibrating and the rest of the guitar sucks out energy at different rates at different frequencies. Does it do it enough that it's going to matter to the pickup, though? This is determined by the mechanical losses in the overall force chain, bridge, body, neck joint, neck and saddle. The body itself is rigid and hard, so the mechanical impedance of the body is small as compared to the other contributors, while a slab of mahogany has a lower impedance than a chunk of alder. Both are small as compared to the impedance of the other parts of the mechanical chain, so differences don't matter much. I think you know what's funny is that, for instance, I have 2 strings in my Floyd Roses, 2 springs, and I don't really have trouble with sustain. But you think, those springs would just suck out all the energy from the tremolo, from the string. Let's see. Somebody's saying, I would contend that a maple cap Les Paul versus one without the maple would have a similar sound. However, a Les Paul made entirely of maple would not sound similar to the one made of all mahogany. Through the pickups, I think they'd sound identical. The woods are very different in their density, resulting in a large difference in the brightness of the guitar's sound. No. When vibrational energy reaches a joint between 2 materials with different mechanical impedance, some energy will be reflected in phase, some will be reflected out of phase. But how much? Just because in theory you might have an out of phase signal coming back, if it's not loud enough to matter, it doesn't matter. Once you get to the insane amount of compression that the saturation of a distorted guitar amp gets to, maybe it starts getting there. Some energy will reflect in phase, some will be reflected out of phase, some will be converted to heat, and some will be transferred. The extent to which different behaviors occur will depend on the materials in questions. Maybe, well, not the species of wood, though. The mechanical characteristics of the parts of the guitar which receive significant vibrational energy will affect the sound. Mechanical characteristics of parts which don't receive energy won't. Paul Reed Smith, I think we've covered these videos several times. PRS is always making crazy claims about wood. But he's full of crap. Proof that wood affects electric guitar tone. Yeah, I think we covered a lot of these. Let me get back to here. The argument against, and this is my argument, hopefully they're going to do this, right? Pickups and electronics. One of the most common arguments of those who believe tone woods do not influence tone is the fact that the electronics, including pickups and amplification, simply overpower any influence the tone woods used to build the guitar would otherwise have. Well, on the first impression, that appears to be a logical argument. As we know, electric guitars vary considerably in regard to electronics from model to model, and the settings on the amplifier also play a major role. That is a non sequitur. What contradiction does electric guitars vary considerably in regard to electronics make against the fact that, or the claim that the species of wood doesn't matter? It's a complete non sequitur. So while the tone on a guitar such as the JS 7-string played through a heavily overdriven Marshall stack might be heavily influenced by the electronics, with tone woods making no noticeable difference in tone. Hold on, excuse me 1 second. Hello? Hi, sweetie. Yeah. Oops, muted. Okay, all right. So while the tone on a guitar such as the JS 7-string played through a heavily overdriven Marshall stack might be heavily influenced by the electronics, with the tone woods used making no noticeable difference in tone, the same cannot be said for some of our hollow body kits, which, being hollow bodied instruments, produce internal resonance, and being predominantly jazz guitars are often played with a clean tone without excessive dim. You still gotta prove that. Why? That's just a claim. Let's see. The argument for acoustic properties of timbre. Electric guitar pickups are essentially magnets that create magnetic fields. Yes. Electric guitars are motors, and that's all it is. It's a generator, just like your car makes your when your motor turns your alternator, it charges up your battery. That's what the pickups do. Go put a wood hood on your car and see if it makes any difference to the amount of charge your battery gets. When a steel string is vibrated over the magnetic field, a disturbance is detected, which is transferred to the amplifier, resulting in projected sound. Yes. in that case, I mean, if you're just talking about that and you don't put any other factors in, then of course wood has nothing to do with the tone. You got a string breaking a magnet, and that's your sound. Done. Period. Now, you could say, hey, the wood absorbs different frequencies at different rates, and that's going to EQ your tone a little bit, but it's going to be so far down there. We can actually measure this stuff. Um, Now, here's the claim again without any evidence. The frequency and characteristics of the string's vibrations are almost certainly influenced by the properties of the timber used to construct the body and neck. Almost certainly? Highly dense timber such as maple, for instance, is less absorbent, meaning sound waves are reflected quickly, resulting in a faster response from the guitar strings and producing a brighter tone. That's a claim. You've got to prove that. So not convinced. And so Seymour, so in order to prove this, hey, Seymour Duncan has a, oh man, please tell me this isn't real. Okay, it looks like this doesn't exist anymore. Let's see. Yeah, this doesn't have like a wood. It looks like this one used to say, I play what kind of music, I want a certain tone, and it tells you what kind of wood it is. And but they don't do that anymore. I don't see that anymore in here. I think Seymour Duncan has come to their senses that that's stupid. Anyway, it's also true that playability and feel affects tone. No. Yeah, this is just dumb. Okay, sorry. I'll get out of here. This was a thing about pickups. This is it's called The Science of Loud, and he had a video called Almost Everything About Pickups and Too Afraid to Ask. Let's see. But he had some really screwball claims here. Let me see if it's right here. I don't want to have to go through this whole thing.
Away from the strings in order to retain clarity and detail in the sound. We've established that output isn't tone, it's signal level and all the artifacts that brings when pushed too hot. So what does affect the sound and tone of a pickup? There are a great number of things, but by far the most significant is inductance. The physics behind inductance in a coil can be very complicated, non-linear and reliant on a great many factors. It's affected by the dimensions of the coil, the way the coil is packed together in cross-section, the magnetic flux of the current flowing through the coil, and the properties of any magnet at the centre of it all. This won't be easy to explain quickly, but here goes. Let's imagine two different pickup coils. One is tall and narrow, the other is short.
Yeah, this video, see, I think they made some silly claims. I'm not sure where they are, but if this is true about the single coils and pickups and stuff, you know, you always hear that you can't, hey, Poo Ninja, you always hear that you can't make coil split humbucker sound like a single coil. And yet they always seem to to sound like it to me. But this could be why. You know, the single coils are mostly made tall and skinny, and the humbuckers are made short and fat. But I've seen examples of both that are the opposite. So maybe that's the trick.
For argument's sake, let's assume the coils are all neatly packed in perfect rows. Both coils have the exact same number of turns and exactly the same DC resistance. What is different between them is the way the coil is distributed. Coil 1 has longer rows with fewer stacked on top of each other, while coil 2 has shorter rows with more stacked on top of each other. Both of these coils will have a different...
It's weird how so much of this disappears once the distortion comes in, you know, which is not the single coil humbucker thing, but, you know, like that Glenn Fricker video where he, you know, started playing all these different pickups, and after some distortion, they kind of all sound the same. You know, I kind of found the same thing. To me, the thing about pickups for me is how they feel. I'm cheating with the compression of the EMGs and the blackouts. I like those, and it's probably because I'm a bad player, so I just like having more compression on those things.
Inductance and will sound different. This is a large part of the reason why a Strat-style single coil will sound different from a humbucker used in coil split mode, even if the coils have approximately the same output. Single coils are taller and narrower. That distribution gives them a clearer, brighter sound. The squatter coil of a humbucker bobbin generates a warmer, thicker sound. That is purely down to the dimensions of the coil, changing the coil's inductance, but it doesn't.
Because he talks about the different
the cross section.
types of magnets and things. It's actually a pretty cool video. Maybe take a watch. I'm not gonna torture anybody with this. All right, so here's one of these things. We've had a couple videos with this guy. It's this trucker hat engineer guy. He makes some silly claims, and so this video is called "Never Use 96K." All right, let me play this.
See, this is one of these videos that I like. I have to use some sort of clickbaity title.
No, you don't. You don't have to use a clickbaity title. You don't. And I really appreciate when somebody puts a comment up that says, "Here's where the video starts." You know, where are you actually getting to the point of this stupid clickbait title? I don't see one in here. I should have put one in here, but I didn't. I will. Man, you didn't have to make a clickbait title. You didn't have to. You could have just said what the truth is. Look, you're trying to get up in this stupid YouTube algorithm. Don't. Man, the long tail is good. Look, Ethan's videos still get viewed all the time, even if they don't have 5 billion subscribers.
And that annoys me, because this is some information. This is a topic
It annoys me so much that I'm going to do it myself, right?
that I think a lot of people will get something out of, and I get asked constantly about this. But if I just put 48K versus 96K, no one's going to watch this video.
Why not? Because you're full of crap? If they trust you, they're going to watch it, right?
The state of YouTube frustrates me just a little
Well,
bit with the clickbaitiness.
So he's going to complain about the state of YouTube, and then he's going to do the actual behavior that makes YouTube the problem that it is. So
We're going to talk about the difference between 48K and 96K and why I never use one of them.
I never use one of them. The video is called Never Use 96K. Here comes the intro. Not going to play it.
Okay, a little backstory. For those of you that don't know, you got to see this. For those of you that don't know, I have this running list of video ideas, and it is forever long.
Oh.
And some of these video ideas have been on this note since I started this channel. And some of them are really hard to figure out how to present. So 4 or 5 years ago, I started this experiment where I wanted to do a video on 48K versus 96K.
Yeah, adding chicks in bikinis in your thumbnails, that's the way. That seems to be the way to do it. And like, and you see some people who are just blatant about it. And sometimes it's funny because you know they're just being punks to mess with people. And you know, I'm kind of okay with that because this is just dumb.
And the idea was I was going to track 2 songs, one of them at 48K and one of them.
We've actually done this several times
And I was going to get all the way
at the
through
same
entire
time.
process, and then once we were done, I was going to analyze the difference between them and show it on video. And there's footage. I still have some of the footage of like the drum session track with Lester Estelle, which you guys know. And we tracked both songs in exactly the same drum session, in exactly the same drums and the same microphones and the same settings and everything. And what happened is we got all the way through these songs, and I realized that I couldn't even make the video. There wasn't a way to present it in the way that I thought I would just play both songs for you guys, and it would be perfectly obvious which was which, and you could come to your own conclusions. And the issue is the song being in a different key, and the song being like with different guitars on it, and the song being like different singers on it, and the song being different arrangements.
All right.
There's 2 for exactly everything session. Is that the accuracy of 96K? It felt more accurate. It felt more true to what was actually.
Oh, is this okay? Here we go.
The very first thing that both me and Lester noticed in the drum session is that the
So here comes argument from anecdote, right?
accuracy of 96K. It felt more accurate. It felt more true to what was actually happening. The transience of the drums felt more accurate. I guess that's the only way that I can put it. For those of you that don't know, I guess I should describe or I should explain what both of them are. This sample rate, when we're recording, doesn't matter what DAW you're using, doesn't matter what interfaces you're using, basically it's a snapshot and how many snapshots there are per second of the waveform. So a traditional waveform goes like this, and the computer, the interface, takes a snapshot of it, a bunch of snapshots. So like the wave does this, I don't even know how to describe this, and there's a bunch of snapshots as it's like going through the curve. How many times per second it takes a snapshot of that waveform, this is the sample rate. 48K is 48,000 snapshots per second, 96K is 96,000 snapshots per second. Generally what you can, how you can think about this stuff. So what was really interesting is that both of us agreed that hands down, that the drums sounded more accurate and more realistic, I guess, maybe at 96K. However, both of us, hands down, preferred 48K. There was like no comparison.
Ooh, sorry, am I not actually playing the YouTube video out here? Am I screwing this up? Hold on.
And what is interesting is that kept
Sorry about that.
happening throughout the process on the 96K song. I kept recording stuff, and I'm like, oh, those guitars sound more clinical, more accurate, more, I don't even know how to put it into words, but I preferred them less. The vocals
Yeah.
sounded more like you're listening to a singer rather than listening to a recording of a singer, but I preferred it less. And this just kept happening and happening. Now, there were some pros to 96K, so let me get through those, and then we'll talk about the cons. If you can't tell by now, I only record in 48K. I already did a whole video where I don't record in 41K. I'll link it down below. I don't record in 96K, and I'll get to the cons.
Okay, is the YouTube audio not playing? Hold on, what am I doing wrong here?
So why in a minute. The pros of 96K are the accuracy. If I was doing orchestral stuff, or maybe even some bluegrass stuff,
Uh-oh.
I would be more inclined to go 96K. The other pro is elastic.
What happened to why am I not getting this audio out? Hold on, let me just check. I'm screwing something up here. Good old total mix. Let's see. Oh, you can hear the YouTube? Does it sound normal or does it sound like super quiet or something? I'm not seeing it come through the thing right. Hold on, let me play this again.
Audio when you're stretching and pulling stuff, or when you're tuning vocals or that sort of thing, it does sound better at 96K. If I'm using elastic audio to like pocket drums or to stretch a note on a vocal or something, it does sound noticeably better doing that at 96K. That is really all the pros that I can.
This is an interesting claim. So the at 96K, if you recaptured the stuff at 96K, the elastic or elastic audio should work better. That kind of makes sense in theory. No, hold on. I'm gonna turn off my mic. Okay, mic is off. Check, 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 check. My mic's supposed to be off. Wow. Okay, hold on. My something is very wrong with my setup here. Check, 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 check. It's as if OBS is lying to me. Let me check something real quick. Check, 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 check. That shouldn't be coming out right now because that mic is muted. Wow, something's broken. Yeah, this was actually working pretty good before. Let's see, 31, 32. Check, 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 check. Nothing is getting there. Oh, this is bizarre. I don't know if my total mix is broken or if... yeah, that's weird. That should not be working. All right, let me see if something broke inside Restream. Oh, man. It's my freaking webcam. Sorry about that. That is definitely not supposed to be happening. Check, 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 check. That should be right. Man, I had another webcam I put in that I forgot. You know, thanks Windows. You know, it Windows automatically switches to whatever the new sound card you put in, so it actually put it on my webcam mic. Man, no wonder stuff's been sounding crappy lately. Oh, that is such a pain. I was doing drum recording the other day for the first time in forever, and it just sounded like complete garbage. And yeah, now I know why. Okay, so let's see about this again.
Doing orchestral stuff, or maybe even some bluegrass stuff, I would be more inclined to go 96K. The other pro is elastic audio. When you're stretching and pulling stuff, or when you're tuning vocals, or
Okay,
that.
so he's saying,
by now, I only record in 48K. I already did a whole video where I don't record in 41K. I'll link it down below. I don't record in 96K, and I'll get to the cons as to why in a minute. The pros of 96K are the accuracy. If I was doing orchestral stuff, or maybe even some bluegrass stuff, I would be more inclined to go 96K.
So, if we are talking about accuracy, the only place where 96K is going to be more accurate is right around Nyquist, where you can get a longer anti-aliasing filter. So you're going to be able to go up higher because, look, we've played this video a million times, right? This is the Digital Audio Show and Tell. This is ziff.org, Monty Montgomery. Let me get here. Let's see, where are we?
We'll see a bit more noise. That's a clue. If we look at the spectrum of the signal, aha, our sine wave is still there unaffected, but the noise level of the 8-bit signal on the second channel is much higher. And that's the difference the number of bits makes.
Let's just look at this spot right here.
And it's piecewise, but it has a defined value at every point in time. A sampled signal is entirely different. It's discrete time. It's only got a value right at each instantaneous sample point, and it's undefined. There is no value at all everywhere in between. A discrete time signal is properly drawn as a lollipop graph. The continuous analog counterpart of a digital signal passes smoothly through each sample point, and that's just as true for high frequencies as it is for low. Now the interesting and not at all obvious bit is there's only one band-limited signal that passes exactly through each sample point.
Okay, so this is the important part. There's only one band-limited signal that those sample points can represent. That's it. There's no in-between. There's no might be here, might be there. That's it. One signal. One possible signal, assuming the bandwidth. You can't get more accurate with more points inside that passband. If you're saying, you're going to look at a 40K passband or whatever, yeah, you can get more accurate. But inside the passband that you've just defined, up to 20K or whatever, there's only one signal that could possibly make it through there.
It's a unique solution. So, if you sample a band-limited signal and then convert it back, the original input is also the only possible output. And before you say, oh, I can draw a different signal that passes through those points, well, yes, you can.
So this is, sadly, a lot of our audio gurus say this. Oh, I could just draw a line like this. But really, I'm not good at math, okay? But if you look into this, there's really only one way you can reconstruct this. There is no this. You can't just draw a single base waveform through all those points. As long as you're limiting it to a specific band, as long as you're under the Nyquist frequency, and there is the aliasing problem, so the anti-aliasing filter can make a little bit of trouble. But aside from that, there's only one signal, and that's so important to remember. People are saying it's more accurate. That could only be if there's something happening around Nyquist, but I don't think at 44K you could make an argument, maybe, for young women, maybe. For any of us who've been driving cars around in our life or anything like that. But at 48K, I don't think so. Dan Lavery said probably be best to have 60K as your sampling rate, But when you say it's more accurate, and so the claim that the trucker hat guy makes is that for elastique, it's more accurate to stretch and shrink. I could see how that could be true, because there are more data to work with, but I think that when it upsamples, it upsamples. So I don't know if it really matters, but this is an important one to take away. If you haven't seen this before, just type in Monty Montgomery Ziff, XIPH. Watch any of the videos in these series. There's a lot of stuff about how digital audio works, and it's a really quick and good primer.
But if it differs even minutely from the original, It contains frequency content at or beyond Nyquist, breaks the band limiting requirement, and isn't a valid solution. So how did everyone get confused and start thinking of digital signals as stairsteps? I can think of two good reasons. First, it's easy enough to convert a sampled signal to a true stairstep. Just extend each sample value forward until the next sample period. This is called a zero-order hold, and it's an important part of how some digital to analog converters work, especially the simplest ones. So, anyone who looks up digital to analog converter or digital to analog conversion is probably going to see a diagram of a stairstep waveform somewhere. But that's not a finished conversion, and it's not the signal that comes out. Second, and this is probably the more likely reason, engineers who supposedly know better, like me, draw stairsteps, even though they're technically wrong. It's sort of like...
So this is a little primer about digital audio. You guys probably already knew this, and you're mad at me for showing you this. So let me get back to Trucker Hacker.
The other pro is elastic audio. When you're stretching and pulling stuff, or when you're tuning vocals or that sort of thing, it does sound better at 96K. If I'm using elastic audio to like pocket drums or to stretch a note on a vocal or something, it does.
To me, this kind of sounds like he has a DAW that doesn't handle multiple sample rates correctly. And it looks like he's using Pro Tools, I think, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's the case, if that's not handling audio well. Pro Tools does a lot of things that not handle audio all that well to me.
Does sound noticeably better doing that at 96K. That is really all the pros that I can come up with, but there is quite a list of cons. So first up, the processing power is so much more. Like, you would think it would just be double, but I should have run a test actually. It didn't feel like just double. It felt like once you get into mixing especially, and you start stacking plugins up, you figure that like the track is double the sample rate. And so then if you put one plugin on it, I'm not sure that this is exactly how this would add up, but then you put one plugin on it and the processing power of that one plugin is double or near double. And then you put two plugins on it and each instance of a plugin is double or near double. And so you end up with what felt like to me, by how slow the computer was when I was running these experiments, what felt like to me is by the end of a mix, it was, I don't know, 3 times, maybe 4 times more CPU.
All right, here's an important point that hopefully you guys will take away from this video. Any plugin that's going to benefit from oversampling most likely does internal oversampling. We just watched how it doesn't matter to the accuracy, no matter what this guy says, what sample rate you record at, as long as you record signals that are below Nyquist and below the anti-aliasing filter issues. If your plugin's going to benefit from oversampling, the plugin will oversample first, do its conversion, and bring it back. You don't have to stick a 96K signal in there. It's going to convert to whatever it needs in order to work on it that way, and then it's going to convert it back. So you can avoid all this by being at the lower sample rate.
CPU intensive than running at 48K, and there wasn't a sonic improvement to me. I actually liked the 48K better, and so this was a huge trade-off. The other...
This guy's doing a lot of argument from anecdote, argument from, his personal experiences, which is, like they say in medicine, the most dangerous 3 words you can hear from a doctor is "in my experience," right?
Huge con is storage space. The sessions would end up being nearly double the size in storage, and so that's a huge trade-off in buying hard drives. And I'm someone who keeps every single session. I have every session I've ever done. Now, half of them I can't even open because the systems have moved on, and I would have to source the old gear in order to even open them. However, I still have everything I've ever done, and that archival cost gets pretty extreme when you're doubling the size of everything, and it's quite extreme anyway to begin with. Anyway, so that is also part of it.
Oh man, it's just killing me that for the last week or so I've been playing through the wrong sound card into Restream. Oh, it's such a bummer. Such a bummer. I was doing all these drum videos and stuff. People were watching, like, man, those drums must sound like crap. And it wasn't. You were hearing the webcam audio. Oh man.
The clinicalness of 96K, or the accuracy, I guess, is the positive spin on it. This is also a con to me because there's less vibe. It's a weird thing to quantify. It's hard to put into words. But in the same way that tape absolutely is coloring and changing things, and it's affecting and processing everything, I feel the same way about 48K versus 96K. That there's a sweetness is the wrong word, but there's a crunchiness or an aggressiveness that 48K gives. I really wish that I could have figured out how to put this into.
You know, maybe he's hearing the anti-aliasing filter, but it sounds like something else is going drastically wrong. 48K and 96K shouldn't really sound different. Something else is weird. This is getting a little bit too subjective, but
examples for you guys to hear. I would encourage you to run your own experiments and try to figure out how you can experiment with this yourself. At the end of the day, I wanted to get this info out there. I wanted to make this video, and I wish it would have been more in-depth A/B tests and giving you guys sonic examples. And I just
all right. Let me okay. So here's something else I saw. Now this is the Fret Maestro. Now I don't really want to nail this guy, but he comes out with a video, a really long video, which has a lot of information in it, and then he shows a device that he seems to have made that rides on the fingerboard. If you don't know about fret crowning and stuff, and we've done several videos lately, but for your guitar frets, you want them all level for one thing, right? If they're not level, you're going to have all kinds of buzzes and stuff. If one fret's high, one fret's low, things are going to buzz. And then you want the tiniest part of the fret to touch the string, but you want it pretty even. And, you know, we've done a couple of videos lately with the new StewMac Z file. There's another one from Music Nomad that I'm going to try and pick up and see. Crowning is tricky. Making the point on a fret is tricky. And this guy is doing something where it rides along the fingerboard, which sounds like a good idea, but you could easily unlevel one fret from another because of this, because you're well, first of all, you're trusting that the fingerboard is flat. That's gonna be a huge problem for me, right? Because my guitars are scalloped. All of my guitars are scalloped. I'm not riding anything on that fingerboard. In fact, I've just ordered a action gauge, one of those digital dial action gauges, and we're gonna see how fun that is to do on a scalloped fingerboard. So there's one thing. The wood's not going to be right. The fret to fret depth is going to be different, so you could easily unlevel your frets. So it's a cool video. I like this idea, and I think that there's actually a way to make this product work. But this channel right here, Nautilus Guitars, these guys have less subscribers than me. That's a criminal. This guy is way better video channel than I do. This video is called Fret Maestro Gimmick or Godsend, a Fair Warning. And he goes through every single part and says, you know, what the problems are and everything. This guy doesn't have that many videos, but what's there are great. I'm hoping that he does a lot more videos from now on. But this debunking was absolutely awesome. Nautilus Guitars, Fret Maestro Gimmick or Godsend, a Fair Warning. So go check that out. All right, now one more thing. I think a lot of people think that the audio channels are, you know, we're all in lockstep with each other. I know most of you guys know better, but there's a claim out there that we just back each other up. Whatever product comes out, whoever reviews it, we're all going to review it the same way, and we all agree on everything. I mean, I hope you know I don't agree with most of these guys on anything. Now, this is somebody who's actually reviewed one of our products, and we should be good and friendly with them, and we are, but I don't necessarily agree with stuff. So they're talking about this video is called What You Don't Know About Your Studio Monitors from Cole Audio Cult. And he's got the guy from Collie Monitors. I've never actually seen one of those things in real life, but I know a lot of YouTubers push them. Could be fine. You know, I don't know. I think you get used to whatever speakers you got. But let's see. He's talking about what you don't know about your studio monitors. So let's look at first one of these claims is active versus passive. Let me play this.
I told you. The first question, active versus passive monitors. Okay. What's your take on this?
All right. So active versus passive monitors, there are advantages and drawbacks to both of them. Starting with passive, in some instances, it's not convenient to install AC mains. As an example, if you were putting in overheads and you had an existing building, you may not want to put wire electricity to your overhead. So there's that.
I don't know. If you got to run speaker cables to it, I know this is the issue in live sound when they talk about active versus passive speakers. Bringing electricity to them can be tricky, but to me, if you're already bringing speaker wires into there, bringing power into there, it's not that much more.
Acoustically, passive monitors have had their adherence, but in my opinion, acoustically, active monitors make sense because you can have better control of both the frequency response and the directivity of the monitors. Additionally, passive components, if they're not chosen very, very carefully, can add distortion to the system.
And isn't it also another advantage that you can have like dedicated amps for each driver?
That's correct. When you do that, you have control over both.
Technically, you can do that with passive too, but then you're also talking about whatever the speaker wire line is between the amp and the speakers themselves. I know. Look, we talk about all this nonsense about, how cables affect tone or whatever, but when you're talking about something like super low impedance, like a speaker cable, over a long distance, that resistance can add up.
Directivity and the frequency response of the system, where your options are limited with a passive network. Passive network, in a classical sense, when you're using a passive network with a regular amplifier, the passive network has to control the frequency response and the directivity of the system. So sometimes the directivity requirements fight against the frequency response.
What about ported versus sealed?
So here's where you go. I don't know much about this. I'm starting to understand it. Doesn't matter much to me. I like either one, but here we go. Ported versus sealed.
That's how you call them, right? Monitors?
Ported versus sealed. Ported provides a lower frequency extension and more what's called efficiency bandwidth product of a loudspeaker. But when it does that at the expense of a higher group delay.
What is that?
Group delay is the delay of which a perfect loudspeaker, when the signal goes in, the signal goes out.
Yeah.
Right. But in the high pass of a speaker, because all speakers are high pass, they have some cutoff frequency at the bottom end. There is some additional delay caused by the roll off of the speaker. And so there's a little bit more group delay with a ported loudspeaker. Now, now consider what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with.
Does that group delay cause phase?
Is a studio monitor that's used by professionals to make decision. So our opinion is that the additional group delays at the frequency that those group delays occur, which for our product is down, 40s or 50 hertz, somewhere in that region, is not going to be a distraction that's going to cause somebody to make a poor decision, right?
Because it's so low, or
because it's lower in frequency, and also because we have extension that a sealed box loudspeaker wouldn't necessarily have, unless you were brute forcing, or unless you had a system where you put a lot of amplifier power in.
Okay, well that means a sealed system is cleaner because you get less of that delay. So if you add maybe a subwoofer or not, no? Okay.
It's not necessarily that simple. Okay, so you have two systems. One is a sealed system, one's a ported system. Ported system has more group delay because of the port, but the sealed system, the transducer has to move further. And when it moves further, the nonlinear parameters of the loudspeaker, because loudspeakers aren't linear, aren't perfectly linear, they are nonlinear parameters. They have nonlinearity, is what I'm trying to say, and those nonlinearities can cause distortion.
Okay, so the woofer is moving more.
The woofer's moving more.
It causes distortion.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. What I heard was always that there's a certain.
That's for the same SPL, right? I mean, it's not just that it does not necessarily move more. It's just in order to get the same SPL, you'd be moving more, right?
Frequency, right? The port is tuned to, and that could be problematic.
It's a Helmholtz resonator, and so there is a particular frequency that the port tube is tuned for. But if you get the system design correct,
there's no problem.
Our opinion would be that no, it's fine. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is that you can listen to a system and the bass does not sound sloppy, right? It doesn't sound bloated. It doesn't sound sloppy.
We all know that like getting the phase right is so important, especially between different drivers. That leads me to the next question. 2 versus 3 versus 4, whatever way speakers, the more the better, the more accurate, or the more problems, or
yes,
it probably depends, right?
There are some
the FR systems like guys like me like to use. Man, the difference between concentric monitors where the tweeter's mounted inside the woofer versus the two-way it's pretty incredible. Like I'm actually okay with the 2 ways, just fine. I can play my guitar, but man, when it's the concentric, it just I stand anywhere and I feel just as happy about it.
Benefits with going with more transducers, and there are some drawbacks. One of the drawbacks is when you have, and especially when you have systems that are not coincident. In other words, you have a woofer here and a mid-range here and a tweeter here. Is that at each crossover point,
This
you
video is
have two
definitely worth
transducers
watching.
producing the same.
I wanted to hit some of the highlights though. So that can a monitor be too big for the control room? So, man, you watch the difference between what most speaker manufacturers tell you versus what audio actual experts tell you. Let's see what this guy has to say, because he does sell speakers.
Underneath you.
One question that many people came up with was, can a loudspeaker be too big for my room? That's what you read a lot. Don't get that one. How big is your room? That's going to cause problems.
Okay.
And maybe we're not talking about like getting the biggest 4x12 mains into your bedroom, but just like, you know the discussion, right?
Yes, I know the discussion. Well, the answer depends on the configuration of the system. If I had, let's say I was mixing in a 10 by 14 room, let's say it's like a bedroom size, and I put some giant loudspeakers with 15-inch woofers, and then a mid-bass woofer separated by 400 millimeters to a mid-range, and then the tweeters way up here, and these things are spread out. Well, you need to get away from that system for everything to come together.
Each speaker has a sweet spot, right? Like where everything lines up correctly, so to say.
In that configuration, you're going to need to get further away from it. If you have a system that's configured such as a coaxial, as we were talking about, less so, because everything above 300 is coming from a single point.
Spot, right.
So it doesn't really matter how big the system is, because it doesn't need any distance to come together. So it's less sensitive if you have a system like that.
Okay, but if we have
that is all right, let's see. Passive radiators. Okay, so I wanted to ask the audience a question about Class D amps. People say that Class D is good for like 1 or 2 hits, and then as time goes by, there's not enough energy in the system to make the kicks keep sounding consistent, or the bass guitar go, or even electric guitars. That the first few transients are good, and then it takes a while before it has power again. I don't think that has to be true, right? Is that just a function of the capacitors used, or can you not have capacitors in Class D? What is the issue? So here's the thing about Class D. Let's see what he has to say, and then I think I'm gonna leave it for the day.
Next question: amplifier designs. I see more and more Class D amps in the studio monitor world. So Class D versus analog traditional designs.
I was actually asking this in a thing at the Gear Forum just recently. It's let me show you the post. So these Seymour Duncan Power Stage amps are at our tripe. He's talking about them. I guess they're Class D. I didn't know. I thought they were AB for how low wattage they are. But I asked, again, is Class D really a problem with sustained output, or is that just you don't have enough caps in there? I don't know.
The first Class D studio monitor that I worked on, it was almost apostasy at that point in time to go Class D on a studio monitor. Yes, there are drawbacks and advantages to both. The primary drawback for the Class D amplifiers has been noise historically.
Maybe tell us the difference.
Okay, so an analog amplifier uses transistors to control the output directly. So you get a linear input, you get a linear output, right? Or hopefully linear. Aside from the non-linearities of the electronics, which are dealt with in several different ways, but it's linear in, linear out. A Class D amplifier is a switch mode amplifier, and it can have an analog input, but what it does is the devices are either on or off, right? And by controlling the pulse width that's going to the speaker, and then sending that square wave, if you will, through a low pass filter, it becomes the analog. So Class D amplifiers are very efficient.
Yeah. Lightweight.
It's easy to get a lot of power. But again, historically, you've had issues with noise. You've had issues with the impedance of the load affecting the transfer function of the amplifier. But those have, in the last 20 years, there has been great amount of progress. And
the
to the
fact
point
that nobody
now
will ever
where
actually
quality
answer me about whether that transient thing is even real. That like you get 2 good kick drums and the rest are weak for a while. I for one thing, I can't imagine that the competition car stereo guys would be using Class D if that were a problem. They need to wave those cars. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen, the metal of the car actually waves. So if they're having trouble with their lows, they wouldn't be using those things.
Difference.
Yeah. Right now, the Class D amplifiers are very, very low noise.
Yeah.
To the point. At the end of the day, if you're near field monitoring in a quiet room and you cannot hear the noise coming from your monitors, it's different. And then it's all harmonic distortion, intermodulation distortion, other factors. But what's really exciting to me about Class D amplifiers, you can take a signal, you can convert it to digital. Now you can use digital signal processing to have a very, very repeatable equalization for your loudspeakers, as an example, and then continue to handle the signal digitally all the way to.
I gotta get out of here. Man, it's almost on for an hour. I'll see you guys later. Maybe